So what makes you a holy person? So the Torah tells us that God commanded us that we should eat certain things and not other things. Food is the first place where a child can be, or at least one of the first places where a child can be taught how to act and behave properly, not throwing food, and all of the like. So we just learned in this week's Parsha about that which is a kosher animal and not, fish, and so on and so forth. And God says that this is what makes you holy. That you can separate yourself from things that are not kosher. And that's unique to command of the Jewish people. So most people think holiness is, maybe gaze your navel at the top of the Tibetan mountain, sit and, go on a fast for 4 days, water only, and that's going to make you holy. Comes the Torah says, well, make sure the fish you eat, are not, they have skins and scales, fins, fins and scales. Make sure, it has split hooves and chews its cud for an animal. And that makes you holy. It's pretty interesting. Who thinks that through food you become holy? Different way to look at things. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Judaism in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We share today with Michael in Germany, Clem in Brisbane, Australia, June also in Australia, Rabbi in Morocco, Brett is in Pennsylvania, Joe in North Carolina, Zar, Malaysia, Ann in Mexico, Eugenia in Calgary, Amy, Colorado, Daphne in South Carolina, Stan in London, England, Julia in Pennsylvania, Diane, Arizona, Dana, Washington State, Tomar in Bialystok, Wisconsin, Cat, Liba, Davida, New York. What did I miss over here? I think I'm missing. In Hungary, Rosa, if I got that right. Peter, man, Massachusetts. Yeah, in Mexico. I think I got everybody here. Beautiful. We have Adam, Michael, Vilma. We have on Instagrammers, we have Tivia, we have Akoy in Peru, we have Hamid here, Montreal, Edna, Jennifer in Minnesota, Alice in Baltimore, some other names I can't make out. We have Celeste Chava in Colorado. Beautiful. We continue in the 7th letter, where the Alter Rebbe quotes from the morning prayers that we say, Ashreinu matov chokinu manoim goraleinu. Fortunate are we. How good is our portion? How good is our lot? Pleasant is our lot. So referring to God as a portion, it's just kind of an odd term. God is indivisibly one, an uncompounded oneness, as opposed to us. We're complicated. You know why? Because we're a compound. just like elementally, we are a compound, right? Like if you reduce a human being into your the compounds that make you up of your chemistry, well, you'd probably be worth, you know, on the market 35 cents when you break it down to the compounds that we're made of. That's, anyway. But we are a compound even on soul level of things that come together, but not a whole oneness. So we can have different elements and parts of us. We get that. But how do we speak about God in such a way? Have a part of God. God's indivisibly whole oneness. Yet we refer to him. So the essence of God is indeed complete, perfect oneness. Even the name of God, which is one with him, which is an attribute of God, is also complete whole oneness. But that which animates you and I and the world is a contraction of the divine name, the divine light and energy, to such a degree that it descends by so many numerous contractions that it animates all of the created, formed, and made things, meaning in the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya. And that light is primarily divided into 613 rays, which correspond, interestingly enough, to 613 commandments of the Torah. Right? The commandments and this life force that comes from God that animates us, it doesn't animate us only when we're doing the commandments. It's the conduit that is, meaning through the Torah and its commandments. It is the 613 kinds of transmission radiation lights of the infinite of God. The infinite God contracting upon himself that and now will be the life force of everything in creation. Now, why 613? Well, they begin as 613 commandments of God. In other words, it's the will and wisdom of God, which is his Torah, becomes then the parts of God, if you will, that now being contracted on the uncompounded essence of God to now illuminate you and I that are made up of 248 organs and 365 sinews, meaning 613 elements. Because the main function of the divine light that is the creative light of God that vests itself in you and I, and for that matter, into this mug, into trees, into animals. But why the 613 conduits? Because that's the 613 commandments, will of, and wisdom of God that now vests itself primarily in us for our sake. Because God didn't create the world for the sake of the animal kingdom. That might be radical for some people, but sorry. But for the sake of our soul. Our soul is made up of 613 elements. So that's why there's 613 rays of light. Because the ultimate purpose of all creation is man. Right? So, what do we have over here? God, whose essential being is uncompounded, that it cannot be divided into parts. So you can't have a part of that. But nevertheless, with the radiation that descends below that animates and permeates the soul parts, then does apply. That we can have a part of God, the ray of light. Now, 613 are the basic parts of radiance. But if you go more specifically, right, that's in the general terms, but if you go more specifically, then those general parts are divided into infinite smaller parts. Because the 613 commandments, just take one, the observance of Shabbos, has so many details to it. So many detailed rulings of every commandment that are without number. Many, someone who studies Torah sees and knows that. So that means that the downflow of the supreme will of God that animates the parts, shall you say, it becomes infinite then. And our soul, right, specifically our soul, is what absorbs the innumerable details of the downflow of the divine radiance. How do we see this? Is actually in the first man, Adam. Adam, he is a soul that's divided into 613, 248 organs and 365 sinews, like all of us, right? But he's the first. And since he's the first, he is the first to embody all of the radiance of the divine will of God. And as a result, he becomes then the embodiment of all souls of the future. So, we understand that he's the father of mankind, right? Chava, Eve, is the mother of mankind, right? But the father, and we're not going to get into that detail now, but he is the embodiment of all of the souls, not just he fathers all of mankind, but he's the embodiment of all the souls. And specifically, the soul is divisible into innumerable sparks. 613 general, as we said, 248 organs and limbs, 365 sinews, 613. Then when you break it down further, there's innumerable sparks of the soul, which are the sparks of the souls of all of Israel, from the patriarchs to the 12 tribes, until coming of Mashiach. Yeah, the embodiment of innumerable. So that's in the middle of the thought, which will be continued. But I want to point out something very important over here. That we say two important points. That we have a part of God of 613 general components of the divine, right? That the divine flow of energy, of life, of existence, comes as a result of the commandment 613. And the 613 is absorbed, those lights, in our soul, in our being, because our soul or our being is made up also of 613. And therefore, first of all, the conduit is through, right? We usually think of life as just life that God gives. But the conduit of it is 613, general forms of vibrancy, of lights that animate, that become vested in us, meaning that the commandment is that vehicle. Hence, the fulfillment of the commandment is what truly absorbs that divine light, which further means that the commandments are the vital force of creation. So the fulfillment of them is vital to creation. Furthermore, that it's vital to creation, but it's vital to first and foremost me, because I'm also made up of 613. That life force is specifically, and the existence of this world is specifically for me. And just like Adam was the first person that was the embodiment of all of that, and therefore the embodiment of all the souls of the future, in a sense, each one of us is like Adam. We're also the embodiment of that, and therefore we have to say that the world was created for me. What was it created for then? For me. Not that I'm free, but it's created for me to be absorbed by the 613 lights, and that the way to access the 613 lights is through the commandment. Powerful idea. Okay, do you have any questions? In the middle of a thought here that will be continue. Eugenia, what happens to the divine flow after the destruction of the temple that we lost the ability to observe 613 commandments? Very good. Good question. So we can't observe bringing an offering on the altar now. We can't, observe many commandments in action, but we could learn about it. And by learning it, it's as if you did it. So if you learn about the offerings, then it's like you brought an offering. If you learn about bikurim, the first fruits, as an offering that you give to the Kohen, so it's as if you brought that offering. So we still, remember, we're talking about a light of God that's animating creation. We can still access that light through the study of Torah, right? So we can still access it. We're not fully accessing it because it's not fully accessible, because it's only in the teachings rather than in the action of it itself to be fulfilled. So, yeah, that will be the times of Mashiach. Excellent, Eugenia. Thank you. All right. Excellent. Sylvia Bella. Within non-Jewish souls, they have 613, correct. So, good question. Of 613 are the commandments for the Jewish people. For non-Jews, they're commanded 7 Noahide laws. They were given to Noah, the 7th at least. Adam got the 6th and 7. So the divine flow comes, the Jewish people are meant to be a light unto the nations. non-Jews, the Jewish people have an obligation to inspire, and by a way of extension, they get the divine light. As we just learned to Torah studies this week, if you didn't get a chance to the Torah studies on Sunday night, we learned about Jerusalem being the eternal capital of the Jewish people. By the way, you can listen to it if you go to TanyaRabbi.com, and why Jerusalem is the importance of Jerusalem. It's quite fascinating. So as we learned there that the divine flow comes through Jerusalem, that Jerusalem is a nexus between heaven and earth. It brings the divine flow, as Jacob had the dream of a ladder going up with angels going up, angels coming down, angels taking our prayers, bringing it up, bringing down the divine flow. And where was that? That was on Temple Mount, where he had that dream. Therefore he said, I did not know that this is a holy place. So it's the nexus that brings the divine flow for all nations of the world through Jerusalem. So likewise, through the mitzvahs, it brings the divine flow for all nations of the world, and for them to be empowered to fulfill what they need to fulfill. The Jewish people don't fulfill what they need to fulfill, then the nations are not going to fulfill what they need to fulfill. Yeah. Okay. Charities. Okay. Israel has a question. When you encounter the work of art and you find it awe-inspiring, would you consider that art or artist to have a sort of holiness or godliness? It could be. Inspiring means, though, to do a godly act. So if you saw a beautiful piece of art and because of that you gave charity, you saw a beautiful piece of art and because of that you did an act of loving kindness to another person, you saw a piece of art and because of that you went and prayed to God with greater fervor, okay, then that's great. That's amazing. Thank you. Jennifer, along the lines of Jewish people being the light unto nations, would you say that we are a lead by example? Exactly. Lead by example. Well put, Jennifer. Natalie, but does that apply to the one who can't possibly do that because of location or personal circumstances? Don't do what? I'm not, Natalie, I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you can clarify, what do you mean that you don't do it? Because don't do what? Be an example? I don't know if that's what you mean. Like learning about them until we can possibly keep all. Well, yeah, I mean, we gotta learn and just have to grow. Right? Learn and grow. Okay? All right, Cherries. Thank you. Sharing. Beautiful. Folks, amazing, all of you. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad, Zuch, and Kadesh, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We have Rambam coming up. Tomorrow we'll have at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, TRC. Come and join us. And if you miss anything, you can always go to TanyaRabbi.com or to YouTube station, Tanya Rabbi, and always catch up on stuff. Have a wonderful, great day. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Thank you, folks.